Welcome to Seekers and Shifters, where we talk to the world's foremost experts in personal growth and development and ask them everything we really want to know. Hey there, Seekers and Shifters. Today's episode is with Dr. Julie Twomoon, and Dr. Julie is fascinating. She started out as an acupuncturist and then started working on remote healing and is now working with the damp. So we talk all about all of that, as well as all kinds of other psychic phenomena and weird shit. So I think you're really going to like this episode. Please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Julie Twomoon. Dr. Julie, would you please introduce yourself to the crew?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was trying to think like what I want to say about myself, but honestly, the words that are coming out are like, I'm an alchemist. Like I'm a woman who practices medicine, but from the vein of alchemy, because the goal is that we actually find, activate, come alive as our authentic self, and then play there for the rest of our life, whatever that looks like.
I love it so much. I love it. I love the word alchemist. For entrepreneurs, I love it too, because I feel like that's what we do when I train entrepreneurs is it's alchemy. It's like, how can I get from where I am to create this life I want? And my vehicle is business. Your vehicle is in the medicine realm, right? But we're saying the same thing, which is, hey, you're here. You want to be here. How do we create this? And we have various different tools to create it, right?
Yeah, totally. Like that's the whole thing. And I would totally agree with you. I mean, I am a business owner too. So like that whole journey of you can't own a business and not transform. It's impossible because otherwise your business doesn't do anything. So it's totally the case. Like they're completely connected. Like,
well, even if you have a business and it doesn't go well and you decide that you want to shut it down and go back and work, which is totally fine, that would be a transformative experience. You would learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah. No, you're right. Because I mean, even I used to have an in-person practice and I closed it before COVID. Actually, I was like a person who did that on my own.
Pioneer.
Right. But it was that impetus, like it was time for it to change. Like I didn't feel aligned anymore with like, honestly, the day-to-day acupuncture. Like I got to the point where I was like, I'm really tired of solving back pain. Like I want to do something else, something that like has juice to it. I want to move it forward.
Well, let me ask you about that. That's interesting. So you were in practice in person doing acupuncture. And at some point you got to this, this isn't aligned for me anymore. What got you to that point? And then what did you do next and why?
So in the years leading up to that, I had started to really dive into some other ways of looking at things. I started doing some sung DNA activations. I started doing like some distance acupuncture work. And I was like, ooh, like there's so much more. Like it was just the view was opening, right? And then what would happen is I would show up at my practice. So I had like kind of a classic naturopathic medicine, Chinese medicine, acupuncture practice. And some people, like we were having those conversations. And then other people, it was like, just fix my back. And I was like, I don't wanna. Like, I just kind of like wasn't into it anymore. And I was like, why can't we do like the fun work all the time? That kind of became the driving question. Then those paths started to open, right? Like, well, the fun work is over here and you can do it this way, this way, this way. So that's kind of how that happened. And I got to the point where it was like, clients are now all over the world. So it doesn't make sense to like pay for an office. So the office has got to go and I'm going to go do this work. The irony being that now I'm thinking, okay, an office is going to come back into the picture because now I'm learning all this alchemy work that is hands-on. And now I want to put my hands back on people.
That's really funny. But I love this sense of like, hey, I can do what's fun in my business and in my work. And I feel like so much of us will get stuck sometimes in that false dichotomy of, well, I have what I really want to do. And then I have like the thing that makes money, right? Like the classic thing, the established thing, the thing that lots of other people do to make money, or the thing that I've always done and has made money. And it's really scary because there's this sense of, well, if I jump into what's fun, I'm not going to make any money and I'm going to lose my financial security. That's not true. And that's actually one of the things that I do a lot in my work is I really have a good time saying, no, what is it that you really want to do? And like, let's figure out how to make money. That's really fun for me as a nerd, right? I love that you did that. And so then you began distance healing people. The fact that I've never even heard of anyone doing like a virtual acupuncture. So please explain.
That was my first thought. Like I was in a session one day and this question popped in, could you do this distance? And I was like, could you? Like I just started asking and like the answer was like, yeah, you totally could. So of course I'm a skeptic. So I was like, let's see. So I asked a few people that I was friends with, like, would you be willing to let me like give you distance acupuncture? And they were all like, what you mean? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Cause I didn't know. So we set up the time and I did the connecting the same way I did with the sung activations, which could be done distance. And people were like, what just happened? And I was like, what do you mean? What just happened? And they're like, I felt this and this changed and this happened. And I was like, holy moly, like that's a thing. It actually does something. And then over the years, it's grown. Like it's become like it itself keeps expanding. Like it became like, okay, so I will get shown points. Like just the other day, I was doing someone's treatment and they were literally like those that guide the medicine were like, you have to put gold needles in the points in her back, which would be a really classic Chinese medicine method for tonification to use gold. Nobody does it anymore because who's going to buy gold needles? But she could feel that like, oh yeah, my whole back like opened up and it was like, holy moly. So I don't know, like, I mean, that's my total understanding of how that came about. And like, even one of my alchemy teachers, like, she's like, yeah, I can see how that's true, but it's not like she's done it. So I'm always kind of like, I don't know. I just said, yes. They said, put needles in people from a distance. And I was like, okay.
Can we talk about them for a second? Because they talk to me too. And I know exactly what you meant when you said they said. And I don't know that everyone listening knows what we mean when we say they said. For some of us who are exploring our psychic gifts, our channeling, our connection to the other side, sometimes we can tune in and we can hear messages. Now, to somebody who's not tuned into that, they might hear this and be like, what? A couple of schizophrenic psychos, right? They're hearing voices.
Totally.
I hear them. How do you explain it to somebody listening who's like, has no idea what you're talking about when you say they said?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, how do you explain it? Actually, I want to hear your answer.
Well, I tend to use a lot of self-deprecating humor. Like many, I use humor when I'm uncomfortable. And this is a subject that's still a little uncomfortable for me because I have the same fears as anybody of being judged, of being like crazy or just, oh, Michelle's gone nuts. She had a midlife crisis. She's gone. I'm sure some people listening to this are feeling that way, but I mean, that's okay. How did she go from being a business person to talking about this shit and having a whole podcast about it? I don't know. They told me to.
Exactly. They told me to.
They told me no. What I will say is they, and I don't know who they is, but I know they talk to me. It's like when I get a message through, I don't know why they came through or like as a plural. I don't know why I know it's a they, because it's not like the message comes through in stereo or it sounds like multiple voices or anything like that. It doesn't actually sound like anything. It's a knowing. And it's like, it's something that pops into my head so clear that did not come from, it's obvious it did not come from me. Often it's something that pops in my head and I go, oh shit, really? Like, so I'm just like, I at least consciously did not generate this thought. This thought came in. How do I know it's a they? I just know in the same way. So yeah, I'll kind of joke around about it with people who are receptive to hearing it. I'm feeling even a little sheepish. I can feel it coming up right now as I'm talking about it right now. Yeah, isn't it funny? It's like, this is a whole podcast about being weird and woo-woo, and I'm still afraid to talk about this stuff because I might feel a little judged, where it's like, who cares? Logically, I don't care.
Yeah, but it's not the norm by any means. Like,
no, I actually think it's quite a precious gift, and I would like to, at least I'm very open to receiving how I can be utilized this way. I think that, when I say that language, it's very deliberate. It's like, this does not feel like me. It feels like me being utilized as a channel or a vessel for something. Close friends and family now we've begun to experiment where it's, do they have anything to tell me? And I'll have things come through for people. I'm not at the point where I have much come through unless somebody's deliberately asking for it, thankfully.
Yeah.
I'm so glad, because I know some people have like crazy medium experiences where like dead people are trying to talk to them all the time. They can't make it stop and they're trying to buy groceries.
I don't want that gift, actually.
I don't want that gift. But I am really open to exploring it and to receiving, what does it mean?
Yeah. I think for me, that's the key. When I started doing those sessions and realized that, because people would appear, sort of like their energetic image would appear and things would be happening. And I'd be like, why does it look like that? And then, a knowingness would come through like, oh, it's because of this or because that's off or because this needs. And it was like, oh, and when people ask me, who's directing or speaking when I'm doing the sessions, I'm always like, honestly, I think it's your wisdom. Like it's your guides, it's your wisdom, because they're showing up and, providing the clear path through. So like you get the assistance that you need, because I'm always asking them why, or what do they need, or what would remedy that, or how do you work with that? And it's always in that vein. But like you, I mean, if someone hasn't asked, yeah, I can tell and I've even been told, people have asked me to do sessions and I've gone in to look at a particular issue. And there have been times where I've been told, no, this is not yours to touch. Like it's theirs. And so, I think it's really nuanced, but yes, I agree with you. It is a they, even though like you, it's not like there's 10 people in the room or something. It's just like, I don't know. It's a multi.
Right. I mean, my human way of understanding it is that there's, guides, like you say, like guides. I I did a mushroom for the first time. This is a fun story. I thought I was going to have a fun, experimental, good time, and it was not a good time. It was a very profound time in which they would not stop talking to me, and there was no conscious shut-off valve anymore. That was disabled. There was no, oh, I'm not crazy, go away, whatever. There was none of this. And it was just straight transmission. I call it transmission straight through. One of the things that they told me in that instance, it was very much about like, you cannot possibly understand because you are a human and you have a human brain. And so we are trying to talk to you in a way that you can understand. But it's kind of like you're running Windows 95. And so you can only do what like Windows 95 can do. It was kind of like, it was kind of like, fuck you, stop. Like, I just wanted to have a fun time. But it was very much like when you're talking to a 3-year-old and you're like, let me try to put this in a way a 3-year-old can understand. I felt like that's how they were trying to talk to me or answer my questions, was like, you're not going to be able to grasp it because it's beyond your human capabilities. And right now you're running a human mind.
Were they all pieces of information that were specifically like for you and about this connection, or was it like a broad topic?
It was broad. It was because it was answering questions that I had about like, who are you? How does this work? What's going on right now? One of the things that came through was like, yes, we're on Earth to like learn lessons, and Earth is a lower level. Like this is like, they were like, this is like kindergarten, right? Like there's other realms and there's other levels, and this is not like an advanced one. This is like kindergarten. At which point I turned to my partner and I said to him, gee, why did we decide to be such hot, smart kindergartners? And he said, those are the tools that we need to do the job that we're supposed to do, which of course is, his wisdom, and he's brilliant and profound. And I was like, I was trying to make a joke and make it more comfortable, and you had to say something real serious and true.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah.
Did you ever take a mushroom, Dr. Julie? You don't have to.
I haven't had those experiences. I definitely back in college really enjoyed the psychedelic experience. And I remember sitting one night and having a conversation that was about like, there really is nothing. There's only, it's like everything. I remember it went around for a couple hours, but in my adult life, it hasn't drawn me.
Let's talk about something completely different, if we may, because I'm fascinated by and this is my facetious language. You're like on some shit lately about Dr. Julie's on some shit about the dampness, about the damp.
It's true. That's so.
And this is a Chinese medicine concept, right? I gather, right? So tell me why the damp is important, and why is your work like centering around the damp?
Because I feel like, so the backstory is I went to visit my teacher and get a particular treatment that's part of this alchemy journey I'm on. And in the treatment, she started talking to me, and she was like, you've got a lot of dampness. And I said, yeah, but it is like reluctant to move. And she says, well, that's because the dampness has been substituting for your blood. And until you help your body remedy that, it won't move because it's doing a service. And I just was like, it was like one of those moments where you're like, oh, like I never saw it that way. No one in Chinese medicine had ever said that.
Can you back up for those of us who know nothing about what you're talking about, don't know what damp means? What is damp?
Dampness is like gunky water, basically. And it can have that consistency of sort of like sludge, and it can go all the way to almost being more like rubber cement. Like it's got a wide range. And if your body in Chinese medicine, if your body, like, let's say you don't have enough qi, you don't have enough life force, or like women who've had lots of kids or they had heavy cycles, they could be very blood deficient. And so in the absence of the body feeling like she can like rise up and like, okay, I'm going to make enough blood, then sometimes the cool thing is that this dampness, which I was always taught of it as a pathogen, but this model of it says, no, it can also be a service. So the dampness kind of goes, I'll step in. It's not ideal, but it's capable of doing it. And so in that vein, it's there to help you when you don't have a way to help yourself.
Okay. So this is like, I didn't have time to eat breakfast, and really that would have been ideal. But instead, I just had a bunch of coffee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right? Like, it's like, I can't do much with the coffee. It's not going to feed my cells, but it'll stand in, like, it'll prop me up.
It's better than...
Yeah. And that was what she was like, that's what's been happening. And all of a sudden I was like, you're so right. Cause I'd done blood tonifying herbs for 2 decades, like literally 2 decades. And I was like, yeah, I don't really get the juice out of it, right? That I would think I had, like, my blood doesn't become super sufficient. And she says, well, yeah, because this dampness has been serving and you're like not even accessing toning the blood level. Like you need to work with the damp first. And this whole awareness wash over me, like this beautiful substance that can show up as weight and inflammation and all these things. It's been serving me. Like, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, thank you. Like, you've been doing such a big job. Like, I didn't know. Oh my God. You know, it just was like one of those where your head like bobbles and you're like, oh my God. So as I looked around, like at all my clients and I walked through the world, like I was like, this is like everybody. And what I saw is that we keep attacking it. Like, you know, we attack weight, like, okay, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. So it's all aggression. And I'm like, we're being aggressive to something that's been stepping in to serve us, soften the world, like cloak, you know, wrap up our trauma in like a nice soft blanket and make it so that it doesn't like cut into us every day. So it just like all of a sudden I was like, gosh, it's such a cool vehicle for coming back into connection with our body, because in order to meet it effectively, you actually have to like see it and begin to love it, because it won't move until you do. Yeah. Does that explain it?
It explains a lot about a lot of life. It's interesting because I'm framing it in terms of, you know, like the coaching stuff that I would do, where it's like, yeah, if you're really trying to move away from something, what you're really doing is focusing on that thing. So if it's like, I don't want to be fat in this example, I don't want to be fat, or like, go away fat, fuck you fat, go.
Exactly. Totally.
All you're thinking is fat, fat, fat. Like all your brain hears is fat, fat, fat. Like what's going to happen is you're going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Versus like, I love you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Again, you were trying to keep me safe. We know that we put on weight when we need to feel safer, right? Thank you. You did your job. I appreciated it. You can release now. It's okay. Then it's going to go away. Then it goes away.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's the thing, like, it really struck me how much this substance will call out for more things that help build it. So there's a lot of conversation in the world, like around the food noise now. And it's like, well, food noise is that dampness, knowing that you're not at capacity to see. My teacher said a couple weeks ago when I saw her, she said that her teacher said dampness represents what we are willfully ignorant to. And it was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's like a lot of us think like, no, I see it all. I'm like super tapped in. I've done all the work. And like, if there's damp there, it's like the curious thing is to go, oh, but what else is there? Because there's, you know, my body's showing me, no, we got some other stuff we're holding. And then that will actually try to keep itself there, because again, like if it knows that we're not ready, then it's going to be like, heck yes, I'll call out for more things. It'll make more of this because I'm trying to serve you.
Yeah. 100%. In a certain way, it's like, I hate that we have to like talk about weight losses, but we all know that's the sexy thing that's going to get everybody interested. You know, you've been clicking on those Ozempic ads and really thinking about it. Like, instead, what have you thought about?
Exactly.
Healing the trauma, you know?
Yeah.
Healing the trauma. Do you find that most of the people who are coming in to work with you about this, that they started from a weight loss place? Is that the sexy thing that gets them into the the damp door?
I would say because this is the first time I've offered the damp release class, most of these people came in actually because they wanted the growth. They got the hit like, wait, it's been serving me. I want to know how. I think as it builds, it probably will have more of a draw. Like, and I have had people reach out because now that we've been going for a while and they're like, wait, someone just lost 4 pounds in a week. Why? What are they doing? Tell me the secret, you know? So I think it has that, it'll go that direction, but my intent, I was at a retreat like a week, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And at some point we were all defining ourselves. And for me, it was like, I'm wisdom and spirit. Like, that's what I love to like live in. And for me, that dampness journey is the journey back to wisdom and spirit, like for all of us, if we want to approach it.
What if I just want to lose 4 pounds, Dr. It's like, well, you're going to have to dive into your trauma. Oh, never mind.
As you know, because you know very well. I'm sure you sit with people in business and you're like, well, you're probably going to have to meet some of this for these goals to manifest.
Well, absolutely. And now I'm on some shit. Like I'm on a level of let's look at the goal itself and let's align the goal itself, because sometimes if we get into the why underneath the goal, it's like, well, because I wanted to like make my dad proud of me or whatever. Right? Because I feel like if I get $1 million, all my problems are going to go away. Spoiler alert. More money, more problems, right? New level, new devil. And we have to get with that. Like you need to really want this. And you need to want this from a clear, aligned, congruent place so that when you get it, because you will get it one way or the other, if you really want it, you'll get it. When you get it, you are actually in joy and in health with it versus I have now created this prison of my own making, which is what we see a lot in entrepreneurship. It's just, oh, I want to grow this to a $5 million business just so I could say I did. And then I get there and I'm like, I fucking hate this actually.
Yeah. I think the same thing happens in body transformation. I mean, like I've been in medicine a long time and I've seen so many people walk in and they finally achieved like the external appearance of health and they're miserable, like so miserable. And, you know, because it didn't come with any of the other work. And to me, it's sort of like, well, what's the point? You know, like, because I want the freedom, the ease, and the joy. And so that's like what I want, at least to crack the door open so people can see it and then they can choose, right? Not everybody wants to go there, but it's why get there if you're like with the money or with the body. It's like, if you're going to be miserable, there's just no point.
I think why is such an important question. Why do you want that? Or I'll even say, you know, like, what's the feeling that you're seeking? So if I want to make millions of dollars, well, why? Well, like, what's the feeling? Well, I'm seeking security or I'm seeking validation, you know, self-validation or validation from others. I'm seeking, you know, seeking freedom. Those are different answers. First, we would start with, well, where do you have that in your life right now already? Because don't go try to grow a $5 million business if you don't need to. That is not just a fucking hobby. It's not for everybody. You shouldn't all be going and trying to do that. Right. But first it's like, okay, well, how can you feel secure? How do you feel secure? How do you feel free? How are you free? How are you validated? We could get out of a 30-minute session and somebody could say, actually, you're right. I'm secure, free, and validated. I don't actually need to do any of this. And I would be like, bang, that's an amazing outcome. I'm super happy to hear it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100% agree.
Not great for the business coaching business. And like, sorry, guys. But I'm very much into this. Well, I have a new framework. Actually, I haven't talked about this at all. I have like a new sales framework that I'm going to start teaching about, like the different levels of sales mindset. And like the first level of sales mindset is scarcity. Like I need to sell you something because, I need money. And then it goes up to, well, I know how to solve your problem, so I need to sell you this thing. And then it goes up to, well, let's make sure that, you have the problem that I can solve. And then it goes up to like, I want to make sure that your goal is aligned so that I can help you get that. And if I can, then we'll talk to you and maybe also. And then it goes all the way up to, hey, I'm happy to connect and I'm happy to talk and I'm happy to help if that's what helps you. But I'm really unattached to the outcome of like my life, your life, or this conversation. And when you get to that point, and get to that point, it's like, I'm so at peace that like, I'm probably not like the best marketer or salesperson in the world. Cause I'm just like, okay, come to me if you want help. Don't. It's probably because it wasn't on the path for you to come to me. Like, do what you want to do.
But I love that because that's us back in our authentic relationships. Like that's your authentic self speaking to their authentic self, whether, it cuts through the crud in the middle. To me, that's the goal of us being here, having this journey is like that my authentic self would connect with yours. Like, and we wouldn't operate from all the other layers, that we've collected and some of us still have, in abundance. So yeah.
It's just, it gives me a bit of an existential crisis sometimes because so much of business and especially entrepreneurship is so built on trauma and is driven by trauma. And that is not what I want to perpetuate. What I want to do is help entrepreneurs heal. But what is sexy, kind of like the weight loss stuff to the damp, what is sexy is I can help you make more money. Well, obviously, if you are more healed, you are going to easily and effortlessly attract more money.
Yeah.
And it's not very sexy for me as a marketing message to go out and be like, I'll help you be healthier and have more joy. I think it's the sexiest thing in the world. But people don't receive that as, oh, yeah, that's what I really want to do. Well, can you help me make more money or not? And it's like, no, I'm not here to help you make more money in a way that hurts you and puts you further down a path of addiction or puts you further down a path of dissociation or further traumatizes you on top of your old trauma. Like, that's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah. One of my teachers has said that she, sort of feels like anybody who comes in for the shoulder pain really wants the whole alchemy journey. And so I sort of like hear that in what you were saying, like anyone who's asking you, can you help me make more money? It's like their spirit is really going, can you please help me like do this thing? And it's like, that's what they're really there.
And guys, if you're listening, like I help whoever asks me to help. Like I'll joke and say, well, the first one's free, but like I will get on the phone with anybody for an hour and like do what we can do, regardless of whether you can or want to pay me for anything. Just because like at this point, I'm here to help. Like what else am I here for?
I mean, I do the same thing. I talk to anybody happily because for some people that conversation shifts them, right? Like, it's like, that's what moved the needle forward. I've also had people come back 5 years later, like, okay, I'm ready. So it's like that one conversation 5 years ago shifted them and helped start to make the path appear, which is the whole point. Like, that's the service.
That's the service. And it's like, or I learned something, or I made a new friend, or it's like, there's never a time where I connect with somebody and then there's no positive takeaway from that. So I do a lot of connection calls and a lot and sometimes I never talk to the person again and it's okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes they become people that are in my life for years. I think that not knowing which way that's going to go is part of what makes it so fun.
It is. Because then it's just service. Like when you're not like, well, when we get to the end of this, like we're going to pound this home, like you're going to buy or I'm going to, it's like, I think it's become a little rare that humans are like, no, I actually really just want to know, like, how do you actually feel about that? Or what do you have to say about that? What is your dream or your passion in this moment? They're so used to being like, someone just is waiting for their chance to pounce, right? And being like, don't you want this thing? I'm going to be your savior, whatever. It's like, I have found that I do feel like that is the renaissance in sales to me, or in like marketing yourself, is like, that you're actually caring. Like, your human self is what interests me first and foremost.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think a lot of folks, and it's not to be down on anybody, because I think, everybody in business probably started at the scarcity level of, oh God, I need to sell something. And like, it's just a stage. It's a stage that we move through. It doesn't make you a bad person. I just want you to know, if you're listening, if you're in that stage, you can and will move through that. And it actually gets a lot more fun and a lot easier the higher up that ladder you go. And like, we get into like talking about non-attachment, but non-attachment is beautiful. There's so much joy in non-attachment. There's so much joy. And I don't know if you believe this, Dr. Julia. I truly believe at this point that there's a predetermined path. I think you have the choice to step on or off of it, right? I believe there's a path. I find so much comfort in that concept, because it's just like, yeah, what's supposed to happen is going to happen. And like, I have no idea what's going to happen. Even the rest of today, I could get a phone call that changes my life in 2 hours. I don't know, but I'm open to it.
Yeah. I'm like you. I know I have an unshakable certainty that there is a path. And like, I also have an unshakable certainty that all beings are at the disposal of helping me walk that path. So every step, I'm like, literally could be a spider in someone's living room that's part of a shift that occurs that then is helping open. Like, I'm like, I see it that way. I'm like, so.
Like the butterfly effect.
It is. Yeah, exactly.
And this concept that we choose our antagonists or we choose our circumstances. It's an interesting concept, right? It's this concept that maybe, you know, when we're souls on the other side, we're all kind of deciding, hey, would you do this? Would you do me a favor and come into this life and be my horrible ex or whatever?
Yeah.
So that I can learn X, Y, and Z. And they go, yeah, that's cool. Like we you know, we love each other. We're going to forget. We're going to go and we're going to hate each other. And
Yeah.
that's an interesting concept to me. It just makes me look differently at people and circumstances of, you know, in what places did I have contracts with people to have situations happening that were for my best good and highest good and growth and development and for theirs, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's helping both people. I mean, they're getting to fulfill whatever that curriculum is that they also needed to fulfill along their soul journey.
They're in kindergarten on.
Kindergarten.
What do you think about the kindergarten concept?
You know, I think that's interesting because the alchemy work that I'm studying is about these methods and even treatments that complete the curriculum in this lifetime. Like there are these beautiful ways of clearing the path I say rather quickly, but that might mean like when I was away, I saw a couple of treatments that were 7 hours long of a person holding points and people moving through stuff. But the idea is based on that classical Chinese medicine idea of like the mortal immortal and really moving into the no time, no space and being able to choose that versus, you know, sort of like what we see as sort of the classic human lifespan, death, and who knows what the next journey is. And so I'm curious, I'll have to ponder that because, you know, like I'm only in the first stage of the 9 stages of alchemy. My teacher's in stage 6 and she's been there for ages. And, you know, 7, 8, and 9 are where people start to be able to do some really interesting things and not like fly and walk through walls and stuff like that.
Oh, I love it when it gets weird in here. Yeah. Wait, how do I sign up to go learn how to fly and walk through walls?
Oh my God, you could she wouldn't be that far from you. I mean, she's in Massachusetts, so you could go start your alchemy sessions and get your because it's a process. Like, I mean, I've been in stage 1 since February. I'm at the cusp of stage 2, but some people spend years in a stage. Some people spend a couple months, you know, I mean, we're each so different, but.
Now, how did you know that this teacher was legit? And because I got to tell you, anytime I hear levels, my brain's like cults have levels.
Totally. So her teacher is an 88th generation Taoist master.
88th generation? Wow.
Like this, you know, there is lineage there.
Right. That's so cool.
So when they tell stories like about, we were learning a Tai Chi form and it's like, so the guy who like generated this Tai Chi form, he was friends with their teacher's grandfather. So he, like the grandfather learned it direct from source. It's not been diluted, you know, it just got passed through. So yeah. And this is an old Chinese medicine concept, actually, the alchemical stages. So it goes, you know, thousands of years back and these treatments are that old too. So that kind of like, that's what stood out. But what really happened is I had to take continuing education. And I was like trying to bust through these hours, right? And then like her class popped up and I was like, well, at least it would be interesting. And you know, when something hits you and you're like, okay, wait, that's just like, you know, it, like, you're like, that's real. Like, that's true. And then it was like off to the races from there for me, but they're based on lineage. Yeah.
That's super, super cool. And so wait, you're in what stage?
I'm in stage 1.
You're in stage 1. And she's been stuck in stage 6 for a long time.
Yeah, she said that she's doing stage 6 like almost for the second time. I mean, it's really interesting because the stuff that comes up, right, is like unforeseen. She has said she's had people get to like stage 6 and literally have to go back to stage 1 because the stuff that was emerging was stage 1 stuff. So like they need to like go back. And that's why it has to be unattached. Like you're not attached. So like, where am I in the journey?
9. When can I fly through walls?
That's the thing. You have to like totally like take what it takes. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, I've got to look this up afterwards. Are you comfortable saying what it is on the air?
Yeah, so her clinic is the Alchemy Healing Center. in Northampton. And then she has a learning center called the Alchemy Learning Center.
Very cool. I'm totally going to look this up. My partner and I are going to go to this thing called Vibravision here in a couple of weeks. Have you heard of this? Oh, I can't wait to come on and talk about this. This is some weird shit, but this is learning how to see without your eyes. And at least the promo videos they have like people blindfolded and they're like bicycling through obstacle courses and they're like choosing cards where somebody's like blue circle and they pick the one that's the blue circle and they're blindfolded. So yeah, we're going to go because we're into weird shit. And like, I am curious and open-minded. So I want to go see if I can learn how to see without my eyes.
Yeah, I totally believe it. I mean, we did play with remote viewing in the retreat that I was on. I mean, we weren't skilled, but I do know. I mean, it was like a thing in a bag, and people are like, it's red. And she's like, no. I'm like, yes, it is.
Back to stage 1.
Exactly. Like, I was like, keep trying.
That's amazing. But it's like, I do believe that a lot of these things are possible because I just don't think we know all science. And I've talked about this a bunch on this show. It's like, to me, this is where my logical mind can get on board with this, my skeptical mind, and say, look, we just can't assume that we know all science. That would be ridiculous. That wouldn't be logical. So I think there are all kinds of unexplained things that probably have a perfectly logical explanation, and we just don't know the science yet. And so are there people walking through walls? Is it possible? Like, sure. Again, I'm open-minded to that possibility. I've never seen it. Have you ever seen anybody walk through a wall?
I've not seen it, no.
But you've heard tell.
I've heard tell. And doesn't it bring to mind, like, my mom was friends with a guy named Roy Davis, who was a friend of Yogananda's. And Yogananda would produce stuff all the time, like here, like out of nowhere. And then the woman, have you read the book, Behaving as if the God in All Life Matters?
No.
Oh, you should read that book. You should read that book. But she tells of working with the energies and being able to like create like seeds in her hand, like out of nothing. So it's just a matter of like, how are we interacting with that energy that makes up matter? And that's it.
100%. Like to me, it's so much more interesting to live life with a sense of curiosity and possibility and open-mindedness rather than just assume that you already know everything about everything and that your world stays this big. It's like, I'd rather expand my world. And if I'm crazy, I'm crazy, and if I chase something weird, and if I tried to go to a training and learn to see without my eyes and it turned out that I couldn't do it and I just spent like 3 fun days trying, like, who fucking cares?
Yeah. Because you'll still get something out of it.
So much more interesting to think maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. What's the worst that's going to happen? Like your perception increases, you learn a lesson, like you get a little more curious about the world. Like those are all great stories, if nothing else, right? Like you have more and more moments of aliveness. Like it's all worth it. I
mean, and I think the answer to that, right? Like the thing that comes up for me, and I think the thing that probably comes up for a lot of people, and has even come up for me a little bit in this conversation, is, well, the worst thing that can happen is people are going to think I'm stupid, or people are going to think I'm crazy. So does anyone think you're crazy, Dr. Ju?
Oh, sure.
What about stupid? Do they think you're stupid?
No, I don't think so. Well, you know what? Like, that's another piece. Like, so I have a very water-based constitution, and I'm leaning into the benefit of water is that we don't care. Like, it's like, it could be a detriment, but I'm choosing it as like, wow, that's such a gift. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. You can't. I think I have a fire-based constitution.
You definitely have fire because your eyes get all glinty and like, yeah, that's like a fire thing.
I'm like an Aries everything. I'm not an astrologist, but I know like my whole chart is Aries. It's like Aries sun, Aries moon.
Yeah. The Chinese medicine is different than the astrological. So like there's all these physical attributes. Like you can even tell it in how someone walks. Like you can actually see their elemental stack up and how they walk. Like it's very interesting.
I'll send you a video of me walking later and you can analyze my...
I would love to. So much fun.
Okay, we have a few minutes left, but I do want to ask, how do you feel about Chinese astrology and how much stock do you put in that I think I'm the year of the cock, which I just like to say.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Of course. Because I'm 12.
A fun 12. Yeah. Honestly, I don't have much background in it.
No, just curious.
Yeah. I don't have much background, but I have found that the things that it's based on are like the I Ching. And I have found that is fascinating to look at and pull the cards, or there's apps now where you can just ask a question and like hit it a bunch of times and your I Ching will pull up for the day or whatever. And it's uncanny how on point those are when you do those. And you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Is that like the Chinese version of human design?
I mean, human design, from my understanding,
design is the human design of the Chinese.
They did. Like they
sorry, with all due respect to what came first.
Yeah. I know. Well, the I Ching definitely came first.
Of course. Trying to say it.
Yeah, but I'm not super skilled in it. There is like Chinese astrology that's crazy intricate. And one of my mentors does that, but I never did it. So I think all those ancient ways of looking at how everything combines work. It's probably whatever we're attracted to, I'm guessing. Like what makes sense to us. Yeah.
And you're attracted to the damp.
No, I love the damp conversation. I wonder someday if that'll change. But right now I'm like, oh, it's my thing.
The damp. Do I look damp to you? Can you see? Can you tell if I'm damp?
I can't tell from your face. You don't look damp in your face, but that, who knows? I could tell if I could see your tongue. I could tell.
Oh, should I do my tongue on the live?
I don't know. We might be able to see it. So you have a little bit of a coating on your tongue. That's dampness.
Damp. Okay. I just thought that meant you were like coming down with something.
That too.
I was training live in a room with a bunch of people last week.
That's too. The more damp you have, the easier it is to come down with something.
Oh, it's all related, people. It's all related.
Seriously, right?
Oh my God, amazing. Julie, if people want to connect with you, follow your work, where can they find you on the internet?
Well, they can go to my website, which is just drjulietwomoon.com. And then you can find me under the same name on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and all kinds of places.
If you want to explore your relationship with the damp.
Yes.
It's been so much fun having you on. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Everybody, we'll see you next time.